Sit still for a moment. Listen to the voice in your head, the one narrating this very sentence. It feels like you. It sounds like you. You have never once doubted that it is you. But here is a question that should unsettle you more than it does. Where do your thoughts come from before you think them? You did not decide to have most of them. They simply arrived. The worry that woke you at 3 a.m., the sudden wanting of a thing you had never heard of yesterday, the judgment of a stranger that formed before you chose to judge. You call all of it me. But what if most of it was never yours at all? What if you are not the author of the signal, only the frequency it happened to land on? In 1901, Nikola Tesla wrote something that his contemporaries found strange, and that we are only now beginning to understand. He said he had come to believe the human brain was not a creator of thought, but a receiver of it. That somewhere outside the skull there was a core, a source, and that each mind was tuned to it, the way an instrument is tuned to a distant station. He was not being mystical. Tesla thought in circuits and frequencies. To him, this was engineering. The brain, he suspected, did not generate its contents any more than a radio generates the music that pours out of it. It resonated. It caught what was already moving through the air. Now hold that beside a man who never met him, working in an entirely different field. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the human psyche, and he arrived at a conclusion just as unnerving. Beneath your personal memories, he said, lies something older, a shared layer you were born already carrying, images you never learned, fears you were never taught, patterns that surface in the dreams of people who could not possibly have passed them to one another. He called it the collective unconscious, a vast common ground beneath every individual mind, not something you build in a lifetime, something you tune into, whether you know it or not. Two men, two languages, one of wires, one of dreams, and underneath both, the same quiet, radical suspicion that the mind is not a sealed room where you are the only speaker. It is an antenna, porous, open on all sides, picking up far more than it ever admits. And if that is true, even a little true, then a strange consequence follows. An antenna does not choose what it receives. It receives whatever it is tuned to. Which means the real question was never whether you are receiving. You are, right now. The only question that matters is what. So let us name what comes through. Because once you accept that you are receiving, you cannot unask the next question. How much of what fills your mind is actually a clear signal, and how much is noise you mistook for yourself? Consider the anxiety, that low, constant hum beneath the day, the one you have carried so long you assume it is simply your temperament. But listen closely. It has no content of its own. It is a frequency, not a fact. A station broadcasting dread on a loop, and you have been leaving the dial parked on it for years, calling the sound your own voice. Consider what you want. The object you suddenly craved this week, the life you are quietly measuring yours against. Trace it backward. Did that desire rise from somewhere inside you, or was it transmitted, seen 1,000 times until it felt like longing? Much of what you call ambition is only reception, a signal broadcast by people who profit when you tune in, wearing the costume of your own wish. Consider the critic, the voice that appraises you before you have finished a sentence, that knows exactly where you fall short. It speaks in the first person, so you have never questioned it. But whose tone is that, really? Listen, and you may hear a parent, a teacher, an old humiliation, a station recorded long ago and left playing, tuned by hands that were never yours. Consider the silence you cannot bear, the half-second of empty air before it arrives, in a line, an elevator, a pause in talk, and your hand is already reaching for the glowing rectangle before the quiet can form. You have been taught to fear the gap between stations, but that gap is the only place your own frequency could ever be heard. You fill it precisely because it is where you might finally have to listen. And consider the largest interference of all, the thing everyone seems to feel at once, the fear that sweeps a nation in a week, the outrage that moves through millions as though they shared one nervous system. This is the layer Jung pointed to, a common ground beneath us all, alive with old and powerful currents. And when you have no filter, it moves straight through you, and you believe you thought it yourself. 5 kinds of static. Anxiety that is only a frequency, desire that was transmitted, a critic tuned by other hands, a silence you drown before it speaks, and the roar of the collective passing through an antenna with no shielding at all. None of it announces itself as foreign. That is what makes it so easy to call it you.
Now, this could sound like a sentence. If most of what moves through me is not mine, then what am I? A hollow thing? A passive dial spun by forces I cannot see? It is a fair fear, but look again, because hidden inside it is the most freeing thing you will hear today. If the thought is not yours, then you do not have to obey it. The anxiety that felt like the truth about your life is only an incoming signal. The craving that felt like destiny is only a broadcast. The critic that felt like a verdict is only an old recording. The moment you can hear a thing as reception rather than self, it loses its grip. You were never the noise. You were the one who could finally notice it. And here is what Tesla understood that we forgot. A receiver is not helpless. It can be tuned. It can be shielded. A good instrument is not the one that catches every signal in the air. It is the one that can reject the ones it did not choose and hold the one it did. So the work was never to silence the world. You cannot stop the stations from broadcasting. What you can do is stop leaving the dial where someone else set it. You can seek the silence you have been drowning, not because emptiness is comfortable, but because it is the only band on which your own frequency comes through. You can notice a desire and ask, before you chase it, whose it is. You can hear the critic and refuse to mistake its voice for the verdict of your life. This is not something the world will do for you. No one is coming to tune your instrument. The static will keep arriving, whether you attend to it or not. And to leave the dial untouched is not neutrality. It is a choice, quietly made in your absence by everyone else who benefits from your attention. The signal is loud, but the hand on the dial, that was always meant to be yours. So sit still again, the way you did a few minutes ago, when the voice in your head still felt like the whole of you. Listen now with different ears. Somewhere in that stream is anxiety that is only a frequency, wanting that was handed to you, a judgment recorded by someone long gone. And somewhere, fainter, harder to catch, easy to lose beneath the noise, is a signal that is actually unmistakably your own. You have spent a long time believing you were the broadcast. You were never the broadcast. You were the receiver. And every receiver, in the end, is defined not by what it catches, but by what it chooses to hold. So the question is not what is playing in your head tonight. The question is quieter, and it will follow you out of this room. Who is holding the dial? And when did you last reach for it yourself?
If this felt like recognition, this channel stays on the same frequency. Subscribe to keep it coming through. One quiet signal in a loud feed.